Hi, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Happy Monday. My name is Owen Carr. I'm the Chief Merchandising Officer at Spreetail and excited to have you with us here on this December 8th as we just finished Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Still have a good 10, 12 days before shipping cutoff. This is the prime time of e-commerce sales every year and excited to be with you all. I want to welcome everyone. Thanks for listening in and excited to add you to another episode of CarrTalk. Overall, our show focuses on e-commerce and marketplaces and how you can help your brand grow in the e-commerce marketplace space, especially in the US. And then sometimes we do talk about Europe and other countries as well. Please put in questions or comments in the chat here. We'll answer those as we go through. And otherwise, I want to kick off just an opening segment here. We're going to talk through a number of different areas, things that are happening to close out 2025, some look aheads into 2026. We're going to talk about AI, we're going to talk about advertising, and so a few exciting things to go today. But first, we'll hit some intro topics before we jump in. Now, one intro topic we wanted to hit is really a good reflection for all of us that have been in the e-com space for a while, is just to step back and think about how big the marketplace space is now and how big it has become. It's now 40%, as you can see in this chart here from eMarketer, of which they've been publishing data for a long time, highly reliable. It's really amazing that 40% of e-com sales really coming through the marketplaces, and that tells you the power of the third-party platform and what's happening. And we also see some really interesting developments where channels continue to go at marketplaces. Best Buy launched its marketplace again, and this has been several iterations for them, but we are quite optimistic about this round and this focus for them, and we're seeing some great performance already. We're seeing Lowe's invest heavily and launch their marketplace, also a key partner of ours and a lot of opportunity. Ulta. And then I'll also just call out that the Shopify environment continues to integrate more, right? With the marketplaces, we see that, Shopify and Target have an integration and others. And so the marketplace environment continues to open up and really grow. And so I think everyone needs to really be thinking about the e-commerce space in the context of marketplaces and how you're going to market and representing across all channels. And one good question I like to ask everyone to think about is that if you don't know who is selling all of your product on all the marketplaces, then you're not managing your brand well. And so you really want to work through that overall. As far as additional marketplaces that are coming in, I mentioned Best Buy, I mentioned Lowe's, Ulta, which is not a big partner for Spreetail, but certainly is a big brand and big retailer overall. I do think other channels will continue to enhance their marketplace capabilities. So if you think about channels and retailers like Home Depot, and Wayfair and others, they'll continue to integrate. I think that Walmart and how they go to market for their brands and their customers continues to have more data, more availability, and more positioning. And so I do think all big e-com channels are going to continue to push more heavily into the marketplace environment. And so that really shifts and helps think about, a lot of times everyone used to think of, oh, am I going to go 1P or am I going to go 3P? And maybe I'll just do one or the other. But it's really about how am I going to expose the very best amount of assortment, click-to-delivery, speed of shipping, competitive pricing to the marketplace, and what's the right way to do that that can enable me to win day in and day out versus the competition. Also want to jump into another headline that we've seen huge performance around AI integration into the marketplaces. And of course, we know that Walmart launched Sparky, Amazon has Rufus. And we're really seeing customers start to integrate and use this. And I think that, each of those has integrated differently into the shopping experience so far. We're actually seeing tests right now that change, right? You may experience something different than I do personally when I shop on the channel. But right now within Amazon, you can ask Rufus for a lot of different information and help you understand reviews and historical information around the item that you're thinking about or exploring, or maybe explore different items. And that's really cool. Also, of course, within OpenAI platform and Gemini and otherwise, you can also search and find information. And I think that right now there's a lot of interest. But to talk about this topic, and you can see the slide here shows the amount of upticked interest that consumers are looking and adopting. But I want to call in someone who is much sharper and smarter on this topic than I, and that's Josh Smith, our Chief Technology Officer. Josh, join us today so that we can talk about some AI. Hey.
Owen, hey, how's it going, man? Thank you for having me back on the show.
Always excited to talk with you, Josh. First of all, how was your Black Friday, Cyber Monday? As good as you expected?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, everything was smooth. Obviously, we saw a pretty good ramp for retail, and it was great to just be able to watch kind of all the activity fly out from our kind of like monitoring room that we have from the technology lens, just to make sure that everything's good to go. So it was a good successful day for us. A week.
Yes, it's tremendous volume, tremendous growth year over year for retail and this retail family. So excited to see that. And one of my favorite things, of course, because I have one in my house, is one of the top selling products for us was our Golden Design sauna. And there's many households around the U.S. I out of privacy, I won't share the exact number, but I'll say many, the tens of thousands of households that have saunas thanks to retail. So that's really exciting to hopefully see folks sweat it out here in the cold.
Yeah, yeah, and especially now that it's getting colder, I think people are thinking about that
Thinking
more.
about
How
that.
different ways to stay warm in the house.
Heat box. Well, I wanted to bring you in to talk about this slide here. We see that, customers are really interested in AI and folks are starting to kind of toy around with it. I think some of us are excited, but, also, I don't know about you. I've had some pretty bad experiences where I was trying to use
Mhm.
AI to find products and it was giving me the wrong listings and the wrong information. So,
Yeah.
what are you seeing? What do you think about this consumer interest in this area for how they shop?
Yeah, I mean, this chart that you're showing is pretty wild, right? That growth is great to see, but if you look at it, and we'll be honest with ourselves, the absolute volume of AI-driven shopping is still pretty tiny today in comparison. But every brand leader that I know feels the same thing in their gut, right? That this is kind of the calm before the storm, and AI is about to become one of the biggest demand channels that I think we've seen. And it's not just because of how people, are using it for searching, but I think the provocative part is it's not just going to move shoppers around to a different channel, but it's actually going to create a bigger pie. It's going to create shoppers out of thin air because these systems are understanding intent in different ways than a search bar or someone is high intent shopping for something. But when they're engaging with these AI systems, they're almost recommending products before someone even knows they need a product, right? And
Mm.
so what I think is likely to happen is the demand is actually going to increase across channels overall than just shifting traffic, just because it's going to rewrite AI is going to fundamentally rewrite the top of the funnel a little bit, right?
Mm.
And I think we're also going to see a little bit of a channel war. We are seeing that a little bit, right? Like OpenAI is blocked from scraping Amazon at the moment,
Right.
right? You have these different channels that are starting to kind of carve their spaces, and they don't want that traffic to be consumed by another channel, right? And But I still think that the overall traffic overall is just going to see an increase, and that's exciting for us because obviously e-commerce experts and online sellers, right? We want to see that growth.
Yeah, absolutely. What if you're help us unpack that a little bit if you're a brand, if you're selling saunas and looking to build that brand, what types of I don't know what types of impacts are coming, what types of things to think about. Obviously as a brand, we're trying to make sure that we communicate clearly with our customers. They know who we are,
Mhm.
features and functions of the product. They feel confident in what they're going to buy, and they buy it quickly and happily. But yeah, curious how you might think about that.
Yeah, the emergence of what is being called GEO, or generative engine optimization, is almost an expansion of the traditional search engine optimization, or SEO strategies. But where you're seeing evolve is more or less like more is better. It
Mm.
used to be, hey, the wording, you only have so much space that these search engines would actually take a look at, and you need to make sure that what you're using within kind of that character limit is really refined, right? And while that's still true, because that's a bias of some of these AI engines, now you're getting more into a volume game where you want to be able to make searchable and available user generated content FAQs are becoming really important, right? Where you have clear question and answer that might align with what a consumer might be investigating or exploring the market or their problem around. So I think content takes a different spin in the generative AI world. And it's going to become more of a volume game and a variety game than what used to be is just like an optimization game.
Interesting. That's fascinating. And what about, you know, my wife and I were sitting down yesterday to think about presents for the kids, and we're feeling a little stressed, right? Oh man, Thanksgiving is closer to Christmas this year. There's not as much time. Heard of people using agentic AI to actually go out and do their shopping for them. Are we seeing
Yeah.
that? Are people actually doing that, using agentic AI shopping?
So I think there's two flavors of it. One is you're starting to see, especially on mobile, on Amazon as the example, you're seeing generative AI and agentic shopping kind of come, and it's more redoing the search concept. So, and you type in a product like I'm cold in the house. What could potentially like warm me up, right? Well, Asana might be an option along with maybe a couple different kind of types of products. And you're seeing that experience take over where it kind of looks like a carousel with some text. And instead of seeing a list of search results, you're seeing more of suggestions in a conversational form, right? And so I think that is being tested right now. But I still think when it comes to like agentic shopping, where an agent is actually shopping for individuals, I still think it'll be a little while before we see individuals give up the dopamine hit that they get from shopping
Right.
to third party or to a system. I think that's still very much a core aspect of consumer behavior that I think in 2026 it's less likely that you're going to have a very pervasive adoption of just someone doing the shopping for an individual, because again, like the reason consumerism exists is because it does have some self-fulfilling kind of emotional attachment. But what I do think that you'll see pick up is more of a agentic rules-based shopping, where like in Amazon is the example, you now have the ability to go tell Rufus that I want you to buy this product if it gets below a certain price. And it will constantly monitor that product, and then it will automate the purchase as long as it drops below that price, right? And so I think things like that will become more pervasive, where the user is still very much defining the bounds of the shopping capability and might work with like monitor influencers on Amazon and things like that and be like, oh, I like this product, but I only want to buy it, when it goes on sale or something like that.
Yeah. I was also seeing that some folks are now using it to help track price changes over time, right? So they could actually say, hey, did this brand really drop the price, or are they kind of faking me out? And so it could lead to increased transparency, which would be great for consumers, but certainly for brands that are not legitimately doing promotions where they're really dropping price, it'll be clear as well, because the consumer could now know, hey, wait a second, that's not actually the lowest price, but it's you kind of raised the price and then dropped it before the promotion.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a fascinating use case, right? Where people may not have historically had the ability to investigate, but now with kind of the back end data that some of these AI platforms have, being able to again, like you said, do more transparency, right? I hadn't thought about the use case before, but it's really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Well, how do we, how are you thinking about the operations, the retail operations side of this? If I'm a brand or if I'm retail, and I'm thinking about solutions or what I need to bring to the table, what are some of the things you're thinking about?
Yeah, there's what you're hearing a lot about is how can AI help the upfront search discovery part of the funnel, right? And but there hasn't been a lot of motion historically in the actual operational components of how does these channels get up to date inventory, order information outside of just being kind of a link based shopping over to and pushing that responsibility on Amazon or Walmart or Target or et cetera, right? And so we're actually Spreetail is partnering with a number of different retailers in the market, service providers and brands, and we're a founding member of what's called the Order Network Exchange, which is a community of online shopping experts across the industry in order to organize an open source standard around how should these channels that are deploying, these AI bot agentic shopping mechanisms, syncing with the underlying order and inventory information across ecosystems. So that way we can collectively support that great user experience that people expect in an agentic shopping world. And so it's called the Order Network Exchange, or ONX for short. And basically, it's a nonprofit that has been created, and we're one of the technical voices in trying to drive what does operational execution look like across players in an agentic shopping world, to make sure that consumers still get and expect same day, next day delivery with high quality, and that they can get that from us and other players as well.
Wow, that's super cool. That's really exciting to be kind of on the front end of, right? We think about decades from now, some of these great institutions and structures, and we're putting them in place right now. We're thinking about how they work and how they impact. Well, if you could leave our brands with just one thing to focus on themselves as it relates to AI for themselves, what might you think about?
I think it's a matter of experimentation. Things are moving at a speed that will only continue to accelerate, and creating in all aspects, right? Whether it be on their listings, with their own execution operations, just have an experimental mindset and be willing to test fast and fail fast, but then pivot when you need to. I think is becoming even more important today than ever before.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining today, Josh. Have a happy holidays, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, appreciate it, Owen. Thanks for having me.
Well, that was awesome to talk about AI and have Josh on with us. And I want to pivot a little bit and talk about just some of the big learnings from 2025 that I've had and we've had here at Spreetail, and some things for 2026. And first of all, can you believe now it's been 6, 7, 8 months since the tariff changes that happened? And I know many of us, whether we buy product domestically in the US that's used, maybe products from overseas, or just the amount of change and uncertainty. If you think about it, really over the last 100 years, we've had more tariffs arise in the last year than any time given that. And that's just really tremendous to think about all that change really that's come into place and that we've dealt with. And I've seen a lot of folks and brands really do well, and I've seen a lot of others really struggle, including the businesses go out and no longer be in existence. And a few things that I see that I think folks really responded well and have done well within the tariff environment, and I would like to encourage us all to focus more on, is one, brands that focus on new product development and being wise and sharp around how they're running R&D and thinking about continue to thrive and do well. And so one single metric I would encourage you to think about is, what's your percentage of revenue that comes from products launched this year? And your percentage of revenue from products launched this year. And if that percentage is not in the 10 to 20% range, I would tell you that you're under showing and you are at risk. And I've seen a lot of brands launch brand new products to market in the tariff environment and do well, because what's happening is other competition historically has done well in certain areas and categories is going through a lot of change themselves, right? Of profitability and costing and what the right retail prices are. And so there's a lot of opportunities right now to move into new areas and new product spaces, especially as others vacate or move out. And I think that also you have legacy products that maybe don't do as well given the current tariff environment, or where that product's produced, or the costing of it. And so I would encourage heavy amounts of R&D. And additionally, we've seen brands do the best that focus a lot on promotions and think about how in this environment, consumers are a little more uncertain. We've seen consumers move down to lower price point, opening price point items, and that's been a big focus and area. And so customers that plan and think about promotions has been really important. And then also advertising, especially investing in advertising incrementality. We've seen brands do tremendously well, right? Tariffs came in and squeezed the amount of available economic dollars we had to grow the brand, and in many cases had to exit certain products. But those that focus on not just spending ads as a priority, but spending towards incrementality is a key thing. And so that's been something to focus on. But I'd like to actually call in Dave Vermeulen, our Director of Advertising Growth and Strategy, to talk a bit about advertising for 2025 and 2026. Dave, how are you?
Good. How's it going, Owen? Thanks for having me.
Good to. I think this is your first time on the show, so welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm excited.
Yeah, I would love. You're such a preeminent, authoritative influence at Spreetail and beyond, and love maybe if you just briefly introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in the advertising space for. I hate dating myself like this, but I started online advertising when the only way to get online was through dial-up. So
Wow.
that puts it in perspective. But so I owned my own agency startup, for a little over 20 years, with the majority of the focus being on, direct to consumer advertising, and then really shifted into the programmatic landscape, which is like DSP, and other areas within that. But then, I've joined with Buybox Experts, the agency that was acquired by Spreetail a little over 6 years ago. And it's really fascinating, strong focus on Amazon and direct to consumer. But then after joining with Spreetail, really understanding kind of the multi-marketplace dynamics that are so important to brands rather than focusing just on one specific, Amazon marketplace and how to win in that area. So it's really, looking at the multi-marketplace, the omni-channel, and how important that is.
Wow, very cool. Well, it's been such an honor to have you here, and oh man, time has flown, huh? Working, growing brands all these years, but love for you to maybe talk about what things you're learning or seeing coming out of T12. We just finished a critical selling season, Cyber 5, and those for that don't know, Turkey T12 we use in the industry now for Turkey 12, and it's really December 20th or so, Thursday before Thanksgiving, all the way up through Thanksgiving, through Black Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Cyber Monday is kind of how we cap those 12 days. But yeah, what did you see?
Yeah, it was really interesting because I heard you talk about your wife and you and shopping for the family and kind of starting to lean in on that. It was interesting to me that my wife and I finished all of our shopping for Christmas before we even got to Black Friday.
Wow.
So you talk about the T12, kind of extending that tentpole event timeframe, and what that means for like a shopper or the shopping journey. And it's funny to me because I think there's so many tentpole events now. Like it almost seems like there's going to be, reduction in prices. There's going to be promotions almost every single month. There's New Year, New You. There's spring, big spring shopping. There's the, whether it's Father's Day, Memorial Day weekend, and then you have like on Amazon, you have the main Prime Day, you have October Prime, and then you go right into T12.
Right.
So for me, I do think there's going to be a little bit of a pivot when we talk about the larger marketplaces like the Target, Walmart, Amazons, where I think they're going to try to get it back to feeling more urgent to shop during a specific time frame. So maybe cutting down, maybe they'll keep the T12, but, maybe they'll, cut down those Prime days from 4 days to 2 days, or even potentially shortening, some of the T12 and make it more focused around Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
Yeah, it is. I mean, for you and I, since we've been both doing this for many years, I can certainly remember when it almost felt like a crime to launch a promotion on Thanksgiving evening, right? Or
Yeah.
Right? I need to wait until Black Friday is here. But now, of course, it's happening a week before.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, for sure. And one of the things I was talking about earlier, that I was hoping you might weigh in a little bit on is the notion of what we've been seeing at a bunch of our brands, where I think especially because of the tariffs and more economic costs that are coming to the supply chain, that they're really focusing on and thinking about what's incremental and how they can spin advertising in a way that actually isn't just present, but actually they know, or they believe with high confidence is driving real sales that they would not have otherwise gotten, and I think that's a big pressure point, especially when the purse strings get tighter in the supply chain due to the tariff situation. Love if you could just talk about what you're seeing on that.
Yeah, incrementality, it's been a buzzword for years, but it's been difficult to define for a lot of advertisers. I mean, what truly is incrementality? I'm glad you brought that up, because to me, that's like the critical piece for every brand, is to make sure you're actually reaching like an incremental new audience to really drive your growth, your top line growth, as opposed to just capturing the sales that were going to happen anyway. So when we think about advertising, we want to really focus on, the incrementality is critical, but we really want to try to expand it beyond just one marketplace. I mean, if you think about on Amazon, you can define incrementality, target new to brand, and all of the data and tools that are available now through like AMC, and being able to build audiences and exclude audiences is great. But then what about protecting and driving incrementality for your direct to consumer website?
Yeah.
I mean, because you don't want to, necessarily steal sales from that. So you want to have a great data plan in place to make sure that you're targeting an incremental across your D2C, as well as like Amazon or Walmart individually. So I think that's really the North Star that we're driving to right now, is how can we capture all of that data with all of the tools that we have with Amazon Marketing Cloud, that's AMC, for Amazon, and all the data, the 1P data that brands have themselves, and how can we ingest all that data to really target an incremental new customer?
Right. Well, and brands can also be a little bit prisoners of their own success, right? Because if you are a brand new brand, you don't have a brand name, you don't have a brand following, probably almost everything you do in ads is going to be incremental, because you wouldn't have it. But the more successful you become, it gets more and more difficult to know, because you have a brand and people know who you are. And that's I think where we've seen is as our brands flourish, that's where they can wrestle with this equation, and you can waste a lot of dollars, if you're not doing it properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And a huge part of that conversation is about attribution as well. So, every marketplace, has a defined attribution, window, whether it's, 7 days, 14-day windows, where it defines that attribution. But you really want to make sure as a brand that your advertising efforts aren't, again, like capturing attribution that was going to be won somewhere else. So when I think about DSP advertising or programmatic advertising, that's really a tool that's used to go out and capture new to brand sales, to target that new incremental audience. But what you have to be really careful with when you think about like retargeting or remarketing is, are you going to show ads to somebody that was going to make a purchase anyway, or they were going to engage in your sponsored advertising? So if you're just delivering an ad to somebody who's in the process of making that purchase, or they're during that journey, then you're actually stealing the attribution away from your organic or your PPC. So really defining those audiences, using really strong exclusions to protect your organic attribution and to help your other ads be extremely successful is really critical. And I think that's where, we talk about the clean room solutions with AMC, the Amazon Marketing Cloud, on Amazon specifically, is really critical.
Talk to me about some of the, there's all kinds of advanced modeling, and especially with Amazon making more data on AMC available this year with Seller Central, and many of these things are being announced. How are you kind of advising, guiding brands to think through all that? Because it really is just this PhD level mathematical equation now that you're kind of asking these consumer brands to wrestle through, right? And how do they kind of think about that?
Yeah, the advancements have been amazing over the last 2 years, and really specifically last year. But where Amazon Marketing Cloud and the data solutions and the building of all those audiences used to only be available for the for DSP programmatic advertising to be able to target and exclude. But over the last 12 months, Amazon introduced the ability to use those same targeting, that same data, those data signals, to use within your sponsored advertising campaigns as well. So now you can exclude, people that, have, recently visited your product detail page because you believe that they're going to make that purchase anyway. So you can exclude them based on a specific time frame. But that data is critical for the targeting. But also AMC, what it really does is allows you to understand that consumer journey. So you can see like who's in what ads are they engaging in as a first touch. So maybe they're seeing a streaming TV ad or they're seeing a display ad first, and then it's driving a purchase that's done by a sponsored product ad. So you start to understand which categories, data points, which audiences are the ones that are really going to drive that incremental growth. And you can exclude the ones that aren't going to be as successful.
Yeah, wonderful. And I think you saw a bunch of these newer rollouts recently at Unboxed, right?
Yeah, Unboxed was great. It's always a really good time. We get a chance to meet, like in this picture, there's a brand that we met with as well as with Amazon as well. It's just exciting to go and they release all of these new things that are coming for all brands and agencies to use to really help drive sales through advertising. I think, we see a lot of the Gen I moving into the advertising, specifically for Amazon, like with Performance Plus and Brand Plus, which are specific ad product types. But you also see some advances in like Campaign Manager and unified reporting. And basically that's DSP and sponsored ads have always lived separately. And now they're bringing them into one ads console together. So it's easier to understand the influences of that advertising. Full funnel campaigns now. Brands or agencies can go in and set up a full funnel campaign structure all the way from like streaming ads on Prime Video through display and other video executions, all the way down to retargeting and remarketing. And they're making it extremely easy for brands to be able to target specific niche audiences, which is really exciting. And then obviously, again, the AMC is critical, but you used to have an expert in SQL to be able to build up these audiences and really target them. And now with Gen AI, they're actually using, you could go in and just say, I want to target consumers that have not engaged in my brand in the past, that are in warm weather states, and they are likely to have 2 children in their home. And so the Gen AI will actually create the SQL for you, and you can set up to build that audience within AMC.
That's awesome. That's really, yeah, that's amazing. Well, that sounds like it was a great event and very excited about all the things going on. Any last kind of summary thoughts you might have for our brands listening in on how they can think about ads for 2026?
Yeah, I think the most important thing I would say is as Amazon releases all of these features that make it easier to target, easier to reach new consumers, but also easier to spend money, right? So there needs to be a set of best practices in place to make sure that you are targeting an incremental audience, that you're protecting your attribution, that you're capturing all the data signals and you have advanced reporting. And I think the real, it's not a fear that I have, but I think brands there might be additional wasted ad spend right now because it's so easy to set up and target new audiences that you really need to have expert advice and a great strategic plan to make sure you're driving towards those goals that are key for your brand.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dave. I wish you the best at the rest of the holiday push here, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, awesome. Well, that was great to visit with Dave. He's such an expert in our field, and it's a real pleasure to have him here at Spreetail. Just a couple things to close us out. Wishing you the best holidays. Hopefully, a good selling season. There's still some selling time to go. My big focuses for you will be new SKUs. You need to be driving 10 to 20% of your revenue from brand new SKUs you're bringing to market. Think about your promotional strategy. Customers are very price sensitive now. We have to be very thoughtful, plan months and months in advance. If you're not thinking about Memorial Day right now, Prime Day of July, et cetera, big tentpole events, then you're not planning appropriately. And then also really just think about, the right features for the customer in this time, and pushing price down. Pushing price down is a big area where we can focus and drive the most competitive prices for the end customers. And I think with that, we're going to see a lot of great growth overall for 2026. All right. Thank you all. It's been fun. We'll see you next time.